So we're talking about these fights that's been happening over at Glen Hills Middle School, Glen Hills High School. I told you I spoke to one parent whose child has been involved in numerous fights, and you say that you have your own take on these fights that's been happening. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, let me first put it this way. When the fights in all the schools started escalating, I was very vocal about the fact that I was very concerned that these amount of fights were happening. And that I felt like we needed to adopt a zero tolerance policy. You fight, you're out of there. But you have some folks in the community that feel like, oh, if they fight, we put them out of school, because these fights were getting quite vicious. Then we were putting them out in the community. We were denying young black men an opportunity for an education. But at the bottom line is, I have several kids that's disrupting a whole school, and I'm denying 600 or 700 kids an education. I didn't think that was fair. I did not think it was fair that our teachers, our bus drivers, our janitors, any of the staff in the school system should be subject to having to break up fights, being cussed out daily by these young kids that have no respect for anyone. I felt like if they're cussing the teachers, the bus drivers, the janitor, and everybody in school, they're cussing their parents out at the same time. If your child can't read, but your child got time to fight, there's something wrong with that problem. Then the parents should be stepping in and saying to their child, you are not on grade level. You flunking everything, but you got time to go up in here and fight. Not only embarrass me, but put yourself in a position where you cannot be acceptable. Somebody in that Glen Hills community, and I am saying today, it needs to stop. Period, point blank. Get control of your children. We are an education system, not a babysitting business, where we sit here and I have to subject the staff to this type of violence every day, let alone the students that come to school to get an education, that are trying to do the right thing. It is not fair to them. So I need the parents in that community to step up and say, I am going to control my child. I need those parents to step up and say, my child is going to get an education. My child is going to walk across the stage, and my child is going to be able to read, write, and spell, and to be able to be a productive citizen. If I can get the parents to do that, I can hold the staff accountable for what they're not doing. I can't hold the staff accountable for what they're not doing when the parents are not doing their part to ensure that their child comes to school ready to learn. And when I say ready to learn, you're respectful. You got your books, your pens, your papers. You have everything you need to walk into that classroom. But then I also need parents to say, if my child is not going to do what they're supposed to do, at least go in that classroom and be quiet and don't disrupt nobody else. Because this is my theory. A parent has three ways in which she gonna cry. A parent, a mother or a father. You gonna cry the day your child walk across that stage and get that high school diploma, because you know that child is gonna be successful. You gonna cry when that child does something really stupid at the age of 16 or 17. They're tried as an adult, and that judge hit the gavel and sentenced your 16 or 17-year-old to 20 or 30 years in prison. You gonna cry. The other way, the third way you gonna cry, is when the police knock at your door and ask you to come down to the city morgue to identify your child's body. You gonna cry. Parents, it's time for us to decide which way we gonna cry. And I want us to cry because every child in Richmond County walks across that stage, get a high school diploma. You sitting here and you say, we kind of like, damn if we do and damn if we don't. Because if we hold the kids accountable, you have folks in the community say, we don't care. If we don't hold them accountable, and then we're a failing school system. My teachers can't teach if they're breaking up fights. A teacher cannot pour what they need to pour into these children if they're spending their day dealing with disruptive children who don't want to learn, that keeps everybody else from learning. By no means can I say our children can't learn, because our children can learn. Our children are very smart. But what we need to do is for parents to stand up and be parents and say, no more in my community, no more killing in my community, no more disrespect in my community. Because I don't think there's a parent out there that was raised by another parent that taught them to be disrespectful. So they should be passing on what they learned from their parents to their children. you're going to get an education. And if you as a parent didn't get one, you should want more for your child than to have less than what you have, grow up having less than what you have. That doesn't even, to me, make sense.
Now, you talked about you all should be looking to incorporate a zero tolerance policy. What's the policy in place right now for these kids if they get into fights on school ground?
Right now, the fight is if you get into a fight, you go to a tribunal. And they'll sentence you from anywhere from the end of the semester to the rest of the year. Depending on how bad it is, the child can be expelled. But what we have tried to do was not expel any child out of school, to still give them an opportunity to redeem themselves. I don't have a problem with that. But if we're giving you an opportunity to redeem yourself and you're going over to the alternative school and you're still doing the same thing over at the alternative school that you did in the regular school, what are you looking for me to do? Because that child doesn't live with me or anyone else in the school system that can discipline them. I need the parents to step up and be parents. Hold their children accountable for what they're not doing. How do you let your child go to school all week and all semester and don't turn in no homework, and when the teacher calls you, you say, "What you mean they ain't turned in nothing?" How do you do that? You don't know if your child doing their homework. You're not checking. How do your child walk out the house with everything in their car, in their book bag, that they don't have no business in their book bag? You didn't know. But the main point is, your kid doesn't even bring home. If your kid ain't sitting at the kitchen table doing some homework or in their room doing some homework, you not checking and say, "Bring me your homework," if it's 10 o'clock at night when you get home. If the rules are established and set on how homework is being done and holding them accountable for what they're not doing, then how you gonna hold us accountable? The failing school system didn't start with the Board of Education. The failing school system starts with what happens at the house. We have those children for 7-8 hours a day. I hold teachers accountable when they're not teaching. I'm going to go to the area superintendent and say, "I am getting complaints that this teacher's not doing this. I need someone to look into it." But if a child is not doing their homework, the child is being disruptive, we can't go anywhere and we can't hold anybody. So these group of children that's just determined they want to disrupt everything is not helping our school system at all. And when our kids have sat home for almost 18 months, there is so much learning loss that needs to be caught up. But I cannot allow you to continue to keep coming into these schools, disrupting schools, not listening, cussing out teachers, cussing out janitors, the lunchroom, the bus drivers. You can't do that. Fighting on the bus, because just as soon as one of them bus drivers who is taking their time to try to get their child from point A to point B have an accident, everybody gonna want to sue, and it's gonna be the bus driver's fault that she or she had the accident. No, it's a fault because your bus driver trying to drive a bus while these kids on this bus fighting. It's not the bus driver's fault. We are better than this as a system, and we can be great as a system. But I need my parents to step up and do their part. I need the parents at Glen Hills and the rest of these schools to start talking to other parents. That don't mean you go to no other parent and want to fight. You go to them and say, "We got a problem. And our sons and our black boys or our black children need an education. They're not getting it. So how are you and I going to work together as parents to squash this and put our feet on their backs till they get an education?" That's what we need to do. We need to stop. It's time out for all the foolishness and the shenanigans.
Let me check on this and make sure it's still good. And there's, so the parent I spoke with this morning, earlier today, she's kind of that parent on the other side of the spectrum. She has a child that's trying to go to school, get his education, but he's continuing to be bullied, threatened, beat up at school, and all those types of things. Now, she has actually went to school board leaders and told them what's going on, and she says she's not getting anything from them.
Okay, see, this is the first time. When you come to me, I'm going to pick up the phone and make a phone call. I'm going to get back to you as a school board member and make sure your concerns are being addressed. I'm not going to shuffle you off. I'm going to call the person that's in charge. And I've gotten to the point where I don't even call the people in charge anymore. I call the superintendent. I call Dr. Bradshaw. I want him to know this is what is being said and this is what is going on. I'm going to hold him accountable so he can hold that area superintendent that parent may have went to that did not respond. So if I didn't hear from the parent, I can't say what happened because I'm not intimately involved in whatever complaints she may have had. But any complaints which they come to me, I follow up, and anybody can tell you. You give me a complaint, I will go immediately. I tell them, text me the name, the number of the child. You give me the gist of the conversation. Don't give it all to me because I don't want you to have to repeat yourself 2 and 3 times. Just give me the gist. I turn it over to that area superintendent, and I also send it to Dr. Bradshaw. I tell the area superintendent, when you have a resolution, you let me know. I call the parents back and ask them, are you a happy camper? They'll say yes or no. If you're happy, we solve the problem. If they're not, what do we need to do? That's how I operate. So this is the first time I'm hearing of it. I don't know what board member, and you have to be careful because some people say the board member, but they think if they send it go to the central office, we got it. No, unless you pick up the phone and call one of those 10 board members, we don't know about it.
And I'll give you her information, her contact information after this interview, but I wanted to ask you about one more thing.
Yes.
She has claimed that there are gangs involved in middle school, in Glen Hills Middle School and Glen Hills High School. Have you heard anything about any gangs in the school?
There's gangs all over the city, so that wouldn't be surprising to me. But again, I would say this, if you're going to be in a gang, at least know how to read.